Welcome all to my paranormal closet where the stories and magic take place. Several episodes ago, I interviewed Brad Bertelli from the Florida Keys about his book on the notorious skunk ape of the Keys. For the listeners, the skunk ape is Florida's version of Bigfoot. My guest today was referred to me by Brad. He's extremely knowledgeable about the skunk ape phenomena. He's the Jane Goodall of the Florida Everglades and has spent his entire life studying the cryptid skunk ape and has established the official Skunk Ape Research Headquarters in Ochopee, or is it Ochopee, Florida. Join me in welcoming Dave
Ochopee.
Shealy.
It's
Ochopee.
Ochopee. Yes.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me, Dave Shealy.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you. I'm glad we could get together.
So tell me, how did you get involved with the skunk ape phenomena? When was your first sighting?
Well, when I was 10 years old, just about a half a mile from where I'm sitting right now, I'm on a lanai of a home here in the Everglades, looking out back into what's called the Big Cypress National Preserve. And this is the property I grew up on. And my brother and I are about a half a mile back there in the swamp. And my brother saw something coming, and he's like, "There's a skunk ape." And we'd heard about him as kids, and I couldn't see it. He had to pick me up where I could see out over the grass. And out about 100 yards away was this hairy animal, like a man ape. Is I really don't know how to describe it. 6.5 feet tall, looked like a man covered with hair. But we'd heard about this growing up as kids, and so that's kind of how it all got started. I'm still trying to get over your introduction where you compared me to Jane Goodall. Um, that was
That's
real
how
sweet
that's
of
how
you.
you, that's how you are actually referred to on the internet. So, and she's
Yeah.
extremely powerful in what she does, and you seem to be very popular in what you do as well.
Um, Popular, but the popularity just comes from my dedication to the research. I I've always put that first before myself, and so the skunk ape is quite popular, and I did help push that along, and so I don't know. I'm kind of flattered, because for many years I didn't get a lot of respect from other researchers, government personnel, even National Park Service was reluctant to think that what I was doing was any type of real research. And, um, and then, of course, I think in 2000 when I took the video, that kind of put put the myth to rest and shows the reality of what we have here.
Please tell us about that video. I briefly read about it, but I don't know the extent of what
You
happened
haven't
and how you got.
seen it? You
I
haven't
have
seen
not.
the video? And you called me?
I
Oh,
did. I
no.
trusted Brad Bertelli to tell me that
Yeah.
I had to talk to you. So
Well, no, the video is really the big thing. But I'm blowing up the video saying this video is huge. But in 1997, I took 27 photographs in the same area, and that was worldwide attention. That was huge. Unsolved Mysteries did a whole episode of it, and it was quite fascinating.
oh,
They brought
okay.
in the state archaeologists. They did DNA testing. But this is like to I don't know about you. You look pretty young, but I'm 58 years old. So,
Oh,
you know,
thank you. That's really nice. We're exactly the same age.
yeah, I kind of had a feeling. I don't know why. Um, but so they came here, Unsolved Mysteries. It was huge. They did DNA testing. They couldn't come up with any results on that. But the photographs themselves that put that into motion were just so compelling. The video was taken in 2000. Now you can go on. I'm gonna tell you what. You go to permission. If you can put a link on your site, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Well, the video is available on the Smithsonian YouTube. You'll see the full video. You're welcome to take a clip of that and post it to your podcast as your property. That's my footage, and so you're welcome to use that.
Thank you.
Yes. So
I'll do
any
that.
way you like. I'm giving
I'll
you
put that link
permission
in
right
your.
now. Yeah, people think I took the pictures to make money. I don't, that was not my purpose. My purpose was for to prove that we have something here unusual. We have as many as 7 to 9 skunk apes that live here in Everglades National Park in the Big Cypress National Preserve. And I guess when I first started going public with this, bringing awareness to it, there was a lot of feedback from Bigfoot organizations out in the Pacific Northwest, like, well, there's nothing to eat in the Everglades, which we all know that's not true. The Everglades is a virtual, salad bar, smorgasbord of food if you're knowledgeable. So there's a lot of food here. And the second thing is Florida's so small. It's not big enough to have, what we have or anything even similar. But actually, the Everglades and in the adjoining state and state owned and managed lands, 3 million acres. This is the largest wild protected area east of the Mississippi River. It's huge here. And a lot of times I'll meet people and they're like, and I've lived here, my family's been here since 1890, all forms of transportation. We've been a lot of places. But when somebody tells me they've been everywhere and they know every inch of the Everglades, I don't laugh in their face, but I just kind of hold my breath and kind of chuckle inside because nobody knows every inch of the Everglades. It's huge.
Where do you think the skunk ape came from?
Um, that's a really good question. And you think, well, Dave, you get asked that question all the time because you're the skunk ape guy, and that's just a common. No, it's not really a common question. Where I think they come from? Well, honestly, climate change is a big issue now. A lot of people claim the water's rising and it's getting hotter, and they're always the news is pumping up the weather. I but we've undergone climate change. Climate change is real. It's a natural occurring thing. And you can see it in the layers of the earth here in the Everglades, and you can see it in the prehistoric remains we have here. There were actually two ice ages. And what happened to the second ice age, it pushed, I believe it's the second. One was a little stronger than the other. But that's what pushed all the humans here into Florida. We had saber cats, we had mastodons, we had what's called the mammoth hunter. You hear about all these fancy Indian names like the Seminole and the Miccosukee, and they're much more recent. But when you hear of these people who lived here, they weren't even a named tribe. They didn't even have a real name, not even in archaeology. Archaeologists call them mammoth hunters. That's
Mm.
that's and so we've had this human civilization down here. This is not only was a good hiding place for the Seminole Indians, drug runners, and stuff like that. This part of Florida was a good hiding place for species during these ice age waves that passed across the earth in the past. So all kinds of species can live here. We have a lot of exotic species that have been introduced. Um, there's so much to talk about. So much to talk about. The pythons and everything. So it's not highly unlikely that this could be uh, something that actually evolved through the evolution of human history right here with us, but in very small numbers, very reclusive for whatever reason. Maybe they say that who are the ones with the brow overseas, Neanderthals. They say Neanderthals were really big and strong, but they were really dumb. I mean, they weren't as bright as the people that lived there, and they were killed. People killed them. They were freaks, and they didn't want to deal with that kind of competition, and they were easily killed off. So there's a good reason to believe that we do have something that does maybe possibly have some human characteristics and common sense, and has been able to hide here in the Everglades, this huge, vast area that's just not yet to be discovered. That's not an impossibility. New creatures are discovered all the time. It was only 100 years ago that they found the mountain gorillas. Probably 130 by now. It was 100 years when I was a kid. I get old so fast, and the older I get, the faster it goes. Um, so where do they come from? Who knows? I could say God. I could say from another planet. I mean, there's people that believe that UFOs and Bigfoots are have things in common. Some people say they can float. Some people
I've heard
say they're
that.
not dumb at all, that they're actually smarter than we are, that they're uh, advanced species.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that too. I've also heard of
yeah,
them being possibly interdimensional, even.
so your first question was a really big question. I don't know if I gave you the right answer, but okay, let's move
No, you
along.
did. You did. You made sense. Absolutely. How did it get its name? How did the skunk ape get its name?
From the smell, it's
Does it
people
really? Do
who
you liken it to a skunk? Really?
I kind of do. I kind of do. Some people say rotten eggs or moldy cheese or goat dung or wet dog. There's a lot of
Okay.
different descriptions of it, but to me, it's skunk. I'll tell you what's kind of neat is my son bought some skunk scent, and it's really good. Really smells just like skunk. And oh, it smells so bad. You can't believe it. Just I have it in a metal can, a closed steel metal can, sitting behind my house. And every time I walk around the corner, I get a whiff of that skunk, and just kind of takes me back. I'm looking around, but I remember, oh, it's that can there. So the skunk is, and it does, and people think, well, that's unique. It's definitely catchy. Skunk ape. You can see my logos
Yes, I
on my
do. I see
shirts.
it.
That's
Uh-huh.
yeah. That's our official logo here at the headquarters. Um, but it's not unusual for reports of Bigfoot to be accompanied by a strong odor. In
Right.
fact, probably yours and my memory is the abominable snowman.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I always saw abominable. Oh, that's big, that's strong. Oh, abominable. That's something that's indefensible. No, it stinks. Abominable snowman. So the skunk ape is kind of carries the same name. It's just different, different language.
Well, I know you said you saw it the first time when you were 10, and I'm sure you've seen it many times since, correct?
Only 4 times, but I really feel like I've been blessed because people who live out here their whole lives around me, they may have caught a glimpse of it once in the distance, or maybe their grandpa saw it. But for me to have 4 sightings and 2 of them were just phenomenal, um, that's incredible. I just really think I've been blessed.
They probably don't spend as much time looking for it as you have. I mean, you've made this kind of like your life mission. So you're
Yeah,
out there constantly looking and researching. So it's probable that you would see it more than others.
I sat down about a year ago because I'm not braggadocious by any means, but I have there, believe it or not, there's still a few critics out there, and are people that just aren't quite convinced. Um, oh, what were we talking about? I forget.
We were talking about the many sightings you have seen, the 4 that you've seen
Yeah,
compared to others.
yeah. The best sighting that I've had though for me was a personal sighting. I was hunting a food source. There's 2 big highways that cross the state of Florida. Highway 41 runs lower, and I-75 it runs across a little higher. 41 is more of a scenic route. That's where we're located at, right on the border of Everglades National Park, right on Highway 41, near the town of Everglades City. We have the smallest post office. It's right here. It's the only thing in town, but it's here. But I went to I-75, which is north, but still protected land. I hunted it. It was in September. The saw palmetto berries were just ripening, and the saw palmetto berries are really abundant, and they're a major food source for the wildlife here in the Everglades. There's been some issues where a lot of these areas where their berries are really dense with migrant illegal. I don't want to say everything correct. I don't want to say migrant illegal. Uh, Farm workers have been known to come up out here in the Everglades in trucks, and they jump off with sacks, empty sacks, and they go into the forest and they collect these berries because they use them in for medicinal purposes. Companies buy them. They pay a great deal of money for them. So like a bag of berries could be worth $400. And so the park is fighting that all the time. And during the month of September, in order to find berries on a regular, consistent basis, you have to go to areas that people don't go to. So I was north of where I'm at now, north of 75. There was about 3 square miles of these palmettos growing. It had not been disturbed. I had the wind in my face. It was beautiful. I started easing up into the palmettos. As I got into the palmettos, I could see that there had been some activity. Some of the berries were stripped off the stalks. They're small palmettos. They're not real tall. They're only like 2 or 3 feet tall. So some of them were kind of smashed. And, right away, I'm thinking skunk ape because this is obviously my hunt. This is what I wanted to hunt. But then in the back of my head, I got to remember, we got big wild hogs here. We got black bears here. But I was convinced, and I was looking, and then I started smelling that skunky smell, and I thought, holy cow. I took about 3 more steps into the wind through these palmettos, and they're kind of loud. There's no way to go through them without making noise. So I was making a little noise, and we could talk a lot about that. I'm a very good hunter, and I can walk without making noise, but you have to go so slowly. It's very time consuming. So I was moving forward in these palmettos, and that's when I noticed they were wiggling in front of me. Of course, at that point, I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I'm smelling the smell, and it stood up, and I'm looking, and there's a figure about 6.5 feet tall, stands up. It kind of goes this way, like it's kind of looking to see me, but it didn't have like a Roman nose like a bear would have. It didn't have that canine snout. It didn't have the ears. Bear ears, you don't really, when you see bears a lot, you don't really think about their ears because their ears really aren't that big. But their ears really stand out, So when you see a bear, you see its ears. And it was absent of those. And I'm looking at it, and this is all happening so fast, and I'm so excited. And that's when I see the bushes moving in 2 other areas and something going towards it. I can't really see what it is, but I had actually come across a family unit that was feeding in those palmettos.
Wow.
And it all happened so quick. I had a camera. I couldn't get all of that going. So it was a real personal experience for me, but it was probably the most fulfilling experience that I've had as a researcher.
Do you feel,
Personally.
do you
Because
think that they know you?
no, I don't see how they could. I mean, they may know my scent. I sat for 6 months. In 1997, I spent 6 months sitting out in the marsh in a tripod tower for 6 months before I got any photographs. So do they know me? They got sense of smell. They got sense of direction. They know that whatever was there lives here, but
Right.
a dumb deer would know that, We don't give animals enough credit. Animals know what's going on. That's how they survive. And if they don't see it coming, another animal will tell them it's coming. Yeah,
True.
they protect each other and use each other, and yeah, they use the conditions of the land and the wind and the water, which is also important here in the Everglades. We are totally controlled by water. If you're a mammal here in the Everglades, dirt is a commodity, dry dirt. And that's just for a couple months out of the year. So, things have to be, uh, adaptable. You have to be able to handle these heat and stuff. And I don't know of any animals out here dying of heat exhaustion. But a skunk ape probably would have a hard time. So, and the tracks are different. So I think there's been a lot of evolution that has occurred in the break here in Florida, that these possibly are like an offshoot of Bigfoot that people see around the country.
I
They're
think
isolated.
everybody adapts to their climate, I feel.
Yes,
So
they have a deformity of having just 4 toes. They only have 4 toes. None of them have 5 toes. And that's characteristic of the skunk ape. Another characteristic of the skunk ape that's not so much like compared to a Bigfoot is that they climb trees. They
Oh,
build nests in trees. They build
interesting.
like an eagle's nest, but like a big cross of limbs.
And you found
And
some of these?
oh yes, yes, the Park Service brought in. Oh, they partnered with an orangutan facility in Indonesia, and they brought the researchers here for a couple of months to the Everglades to check on some of my claims of these unusual nests that I'm finding here in the swamp. And they were going at it like it was orangutans, but I think they figured out different because orangutans make a new bed every night. These beds were being used over and over again, and they were large. And I don't know, you know, they always want to take credit for everything. They're always taking credit for stuff that I've done. They
Hmm.
are. I mean, that's on a personal level. See, I grew up in the park. All these people running this park and all, I've had to deal with them all my life. And I've made changes in the Everglades. I've made big changes out here. People don't even know the changes that I've made to keep this place open and wild here. It's been a lifetime battle.
Mm. How
And you
long
wouldn't
was
think
the
you'd have to fight the Park Service. I mean, you think they'd be on your team, but
you would
the
think?
world is crazy today. Don't believe anything you hear unless I'm telling you.
Okay. I'll remember that. When was your research facility established exactly?
The property here was purchased by my dad in 1961, which predates the preserve. We were settlers here by the time they started to create this. The government bought all of our neighbors out, but we have been here long enough. We had a history dating back to 1890, but this particular property was 1961, so we were exempted from being acquired by the park. So I'm actually right in the middle of the national park
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
preserve and on the border of the national park. And the preserve is cypress trees and pine forests and prairies and oak hammocks and marshes. And it's all the things that mammals and wildlife need to survive. Where the Everglades National Park has some of that, but that's mainly the mangrove estuaries and stuff like that that are so important to the ecosystem and the waters in the Gulf. And I don't know how long we got to talk and what we're going to get to talk about. We definitely need to, I'm going to ask a question. We definitely need to talk about Brad Bernelli, and we need to
Yeah,
talk about his book. He's the one that
we
started all of this.
we
He's the one
did. I
that was
actually I had
the
I was scouting the internet looking for strange and scary phenomena for my show and came across his book, and that's what had me reach out to him to ask him for an interview. So he came on my show for an interview. So we talked about his stories being false but based on true facts.
You mean they're not true?
No, they're not. But he did say that they were based on true stories that people have shared. And he does have that written in his synopsis of the book. So it's not like he's trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. They would know
No,
that these are
it's
stories
written in
based on
fine
true.
print in the back underneath the barcode. No.
No, he very honestly says in his synopsis and his description. But some people don't like to read that and understand that. But a lot of stuff on TV even now is based on true events. So he's not doing anything wrong, and he's actually bringing attention to the existence of this cryptid. And I feel that in itself is important. I think it's important that people realize that Bigfoot, abominable snowman, skunk ape, they exist, and we have similar cryptids all around the country and all around the world. And you can take it for what it's worth or not believe it, whatever. Who cares? But at least we're talking about it and bringing awareness to it. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
as long as we're talking about it, that's a good thing
that's
for
right.
sure. So, and that's how I feel about Brad's book. I met Brad and I knew that like one of the stories in the book had a little bit of weight to it, that there was some truth into that story for sure in the beginning. And then he goes down through the islands, and Brad is really good at what he does, and Brad is a historian, and each of the stories don't just talk about the skunk ape; they talk about the history of the Keys, and
Exactly.
it's a true and accurate depiction of the Keys and its history. And I think it's important that people know that as much is about the skunk ape.
I
And so I think
totally
it's
agree,
just a
Dave.
good mix.
Exactly.
However,
Well, see, that's one of the things that he and I had
however,
in common. You'll give me that, however, let me just get this point across. He and I have that in
yeah,
common about the history stuff because I write books about true account hauntings in the counties surrounding my own home, true account ghost hauntings. And I like to write about the history of the towns and the history of the location to give people that knowledge of what these spirits are about and who they may be from the history standpoint. So when he told me that he loves to share the history of the Keys, that was it. I was in there. I was right in there to have an interview with him because I felt like that was really important too. But what's that however? What was that however you were getting to?
oh, it's and you know, Brad's got a lot of fans, but there's a lot of competition in his field. Everybody's a historian, you know, and
Mm,
so he's got people that aren't real fond of him, but and I they're all my friends, and I always defend Brad, you know, because he's doing a good thing, and he's the only person that has sets aside so much time to put together these stories of history and share it with people in the Keys. People who live down there learn from the stuff that Brad writes. This is healthy stuff. This is good
mm-hmm.
stuff. So, you know, Brad is my friend. I carry his book. Now, the point. Okay, now I'll tell you the point.
Okay.
Here comes these professional researchers, or you know, they come down here. They don't know Brad. They don't know me. They don't care about the Keys. They just want to know about the skunk ape. And some of them will buy Brad's book. One particular, and they were making a movie and spent a great deal
He
of
told
money
me about that.
depicting. Yeah,
He told
and
me
I'm
about
the one
that.
that blew the whistle and said, "Listen, guys, that's not a true story." And
Right.
they were like, "Yeah," and but you know, whatever. They should have
honestly,
done their homework. They should have read the book.
they probably really didn't even care about the fact that it may not have been true because they're all about entertainment and bringing it. Even the paranormal world in the media nowadays is so far off of what it is in reality. And it's all because of entertainment purposes. They're there to entertain you. So they're going to do what they
You
have to do to
preaching
make
to the
you watch.
choir. You're preaching to the choir.
Okay,
I've
see?
been in this for 25 years. I get crazy offers. I'm offered 50 million right now by movie creators in California for my life story. And I'm involved all the time in the reality shows that you're seeing on television now. So I just want to tell you, you're right on the money. That's all. I just
See?
want
Well,
you're
thank you. I
correct.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
So
correct.
tell
It's
me, what is,
all for television.
yep, that's right. Well, tell me exactly what is it that you do at your research center? And is it like a museum that people could come and um,
Well, we got a
talk to
lot
you?
of hope here. There's a lot of hope going on at the headquarters.
Hmm.
I guess the biggest hope is that we're busy. I mean, it's the middle of the slow season right now. My parking lot's packed every day in the middle of the slow
Right.
season. Other businesses around town that you know they got bills, so they don't have that many customers. I'm busy, so that we I used it as a lifeline to keep the lights on here at the campground. Built that gift shop, started selling shirts. I mean, I got to survive here. You got to have electricity, and so this started a while back, and it's built into. It's kind of evolved. I have the second largest snake in the world here
Mhm.
at the headquarters for the public to look at. It's 24 feet long. It weighs 350 pounds. Hasn't been measured in 3 years. The world record is 25 feet. I believe right now If I had Ripley's or Guinness Book back here to measure her again, I have the biggest snake in the world. And none of this was ever planned. So people come into the headquarters. It's mainly a place, I'll be honest with you, it's mainly a place where you can get a t-shirt and a bumper sticker. But there's a lot more to it than that. We have indigenous huts on the back of the property that we rent out. I mean, they're a couple $100 a night, but we've got 5 of those, open air, screened in. In the wintertime is when I recommend you use those. They're indigenous huts. They're built by the Indians. Then we have cabins with air conditioning. We have like 5 or 6 of those. And then I have 150 RV sites. We're also licensed by the National Park Service to do tours in the preserve with pole boats. They're like gondolas, and we make them ourselves out of cypress, and they hold 3 or 4 people. And then we have guides that work for us who are licensed through the Park Service to take people out. We do canoe and kayak rentals. And then we have the animal exhibit, which is located inside the headquarters store, which functions as the office for the rest of the facility.
How did you
So it's
acquire the
pretty big.
snake? Did you find the snake in the Everglades?
I did. And I always laugh because I see these people on the, oh, they caught the biggest snake. And yeah,
Oh
it's
my gosh.
It's just nightly news is as bad as reality TV. So yeah, I caught that one. That snake almost killed me. It was a pet that, and it's officially the second biggest snake in the world. Could be the world record. Right now it's 24 feet that we know, 350 pounds. That's a big snake.
Yeah.
There was a raccoon trying to get my chickens, running down a fence. I shoot the raccoon out of the tree because I don't want to kill my chickens. I don't have a big hen house. I could do better. So I'm going to feed the raccoon to my alligators. We got a cycle of life here that we live. And so I come to the house. I go back to where I'd shot the raccoon, which was near a big waterfall we have. At that time, there was no water in it. It was dry inside. It's got a cave in the back. Well, I knew the coon fell into that water. So I go in that waterfall and I'm looking around, and I look on a rock and I saw a drop of blood where the water cascades off the rock. And I said, aha, I knew I got him. And I looked up, and Goldie, that's her name, was getting ready to bite me right in the face. At that time, she was 18 feet long, and she's a reticulated python. And had she bit me in the face, she easily could have coiled around my neck, broke my neck, killed me right there. So me and her got a funny relationship. But I've had her for a long time now. She's grown to record sizes. So if you want to know who caught the biggest snake in the Everglades, of course I did. Yeah.
What do you feed her, Dave?
She can swallow a 140-pound item. She is a reticulated, which I mentioned. That is the only snake in the world that hunts and eats people. Humans are on their list of prey items. They forget the anaconda. Get that back there. These retics are the hugest, longest snakes in the world. They grow upwards of 30 feet. Okay. She can swallow a human being. But what I do is I purchase frozen rabbits from a organic farm, because you don't want to get chemicals built up in the snake, steroids and stuff. So we feed them organic, and we get large rabbits from a company that supplies zoos and stuff, and they come frozen on dry ice, and then I pack them in a freezer, and then I feed her maybe 3 or 4 8-pound rabbits every 2 weeks during the summer, and that seems to be good for her. And you have to measure what you feed her by looking at her and looking at her health. Same way when you own reptiles. A lot of people don't have, like, well, how much did it eat? Well, it'll eat as much as you want to give it. It'll overeat, and that's not healthy for animals. So you have to be a judge and not be like a jail guy, like depriving them of food. But you have to keep it reasonable, and you do that visually by looking at the animal. That's the only way to do it.
Oh my goodness. And you caught this snake.
And I got the biggest snake in the world, so I'm doing a good job. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So if you found her out there, that tells me that there are a lot more like her out
Uh,
there.
we
And that
could talk
terrifies
about,
me.
I didn't mean it. We could talk about snakes all day. I know a lot about snakes. I've been doing the python thing here in Everglades longer than anybody. Everybody calls me the skunk ape guy. When I was 4 years old, there was a sawmill out here, and the lady, I remember, she'd have hang out the kitchen window, kind of the dress and her kind of her boobs hanging out there. And I'd be walking by in the water in the woods, and she'd say, "You got any snakes in your pocket, Dave?" And I reach in my pocket and pull out, 5 or 6 ribbon snakes. And I go, "Yes, ma'am." I've
Oh
been, I
my
know
God.
about snakes. And
Oh,
what's going on right now, and you probably haven't heard about it yet. You've heard about the pythons in the Everglades, right?
yeah, I've also heard about the python hunt. There's a
Okay.
hunt.
Yeah, there's a hunt. I got a hunt going on too. I got a skunk ape. It's called the Skunk Ape Challenge. It's $10,000 if you want to be in it. So I mean, it's kind of a rich man's thing.
Hmm.
But I need that. I need that right now. It's my birthday coming up in September. I'm 58, and I want to have a good time. And I want to have a good time with some people out with skunk apes. And that 10,000 covers 7 days in the Everglades, airboats, swamp buggies, hunting camps, probably
From
even
soup
a
to
night out
nuts.
down in Key West. But it's so like a lifetime dream of a guy maybe who has a job at a bank in a city, and just wants to do something completely, totally out of the
Far
ballpark
out.
crazy. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get those kind of people when I do these, and I don't do them very often. And a lot of times the people don't want to be like, "Don't tell anybody I was here."
yeah.
But the biggest complaint I
Not-
get is I don't charge enough, believe it or not.
Wow.
You didn't charge me enough for this. You need to raise your rates, Dave. I
Well,
had a
good for
great guy do it.
you. Good for
Yeah.
you. Oh my goodness. So yeah, getting back to the fact that there's probably big snakes just like your snake out there.
Everywhere. Yeah,
Ugh,
they're everywhere. But like I said, we could talk about that. I can talk about all things Everglades from beginning to end. The snake hunters that are out here now, they've caught like 7,000 of the python, 6 or 7,000. And you naturally, being a human, you want to think, well, that's fantastic. They're doing such a good job and getting those mean snakes out of the Everglades. Hey, those people pay my bills. I make a lot of money off them snake hunters. I might cut my own throat here when I tell you what I'm fixing to tell you. Hopefully, none of them are watching. Hopefully, they are. But I think personally, we'd be better off if they just left those 6,000 snakes out there, because all of our wildlife is gone anyhow at this point, and it's not the snake's fault entirely. But nature has a way of taking care of itself all over the world, but especially here in the Everglades. The native species are very resilient, and exotic species come to pinnacles and then they drastically reduce to manageable levels. That's all done naturally. And by taking these snakes out and not letting that pinnacle occur, they keep it here. If they just let it go, nature will take care of itself. But, you know, in the meantime, I'm making money on these guys, and it's all government stuff. The biggest damage ever done to the Everglades by somebody wanting to help. Now they weren't trying to help when they were draining the Everglades. They were trying to develop it. I'm talking about somebody's honestly trying to help the Everglades that created a disaster that people don't even want to talk about because of the money involved. And that's the introduction of the Texas cougar to the Everglades. That
really?
was the most horrible, horrible thing. It's going to take another 50 years for the wildlife to come back here. And
So
nobody,
why did they introduce the cougar in the first place?
well, because it's a big cat. People love big cats. We had 30 here. They said that they were inbreeding and unhealthy and they needed to pump some new genes into them. But in the meantime, it wasn't about the 30 cats that were here. They were taking people's property and cattle ranches and stopping people from living their lives and destroying cultures, trying to build these areas so they could put hundreds and hundreds of cats into areas that might could hold 50 or 60. and the cats literally starved to death,
Oh,
eating themselves. Right now, they've all got cancer and they're dying, and it's a big mess. Now, last night, a friend of mine who had night vision, he turned his night vision camera on to look in the field. And when he turned it on, there's a giant panther standing right in front of him, a big glow. And
mm,
normally you see the infrared camera shots of like stuff at night, and it's just kind of fuzzy, and you really can't tell what it is. This, I don't know if it's advanced or not, but this thing just looks so alive and so big and heavy. This cougar was so big. Our panthers are small, but they're dying off, thank God, and people are gonna hate me. How can you say that you're happy that the cats are dead? Well, I don't know if I'm happy about it, but good Lord, it was not healthy. It just wasn't healthy for them or the wildlife here. So nature takes care of itself, but you know, I don't like to get into that. I've had a lot of personal things in my life affected by those cats. Still are today. I have to fight hard just to be here because of those cats. Biggest mistake the state of Florida ever made.
mm.
Bringing Texas cougars to the Everglades. They preach all over their websites about exotics. Oh, we got exotics. They got the snake program. They got the pig program. They got program to get rid of trees. They got program to get rid of everything. Oh, yeah.
But then they add
Program.
the cougars
Get
to the.
with the program.
Oh my
What's the
goodness.
program? Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of money in it.
Hmm.
These people, my God. Uh,
Well, I imagine that you being involved in the skunk ape phenomena all these
imagine
years,
that.
you probably get a lot of people from different parts of the state that come to you and say, "Oh my gosh,
All over the world.
do
I
I
didn't
have a
mean that.
story to tell
I'm
you?
gonna,
Do I have a
I'm
story
gonna
to tell you?"
go
What
ahead.
are some of the stories that you've heard,
From who? About what?
the skunk ape, from people?
You just ask these questions. I so many stories. What? Okay, I'm gonna tell you three skunk ape stories. Okay,
Yeah.
but I hear skunk ape stories every day all my life, lots and lots. I hear them from the Indians, and
But
I'm so blessed.
I don't hear any. That's what I want to hear about.
I'm so blessed to be in the position I'm in. And once again, referring back to your initial question, what do people when they come into the animal exhibit or they come off the road? What is it? It's an information. It's a meeting ground. It's a place where people of common interest or curiosities can meet and
Hmm.
talk. And that's the research going on. People talking, people meeting, people sharing stories, people reporting sightings. Back in
That's
the 70s, there were some hunters out at a hunting camp in the Everglades. They'd been out hunting all day. They got back to the camp. They decided they'd do some cooking. So they had some pots, they had some beans cooking on the stove, and they had the tube that went out of the top of the building. So the smoke would go out. It gets dark. They're playing cards at the card table. It's like six guys. They got a lantern sitting there on the table, and they're playing cards. There's an oak tree outside the cabin. It grows over the cabin. A skunk ape had crawled up that tree. They think it had smelt that cooking or out of curiosity. Falls right through the roof. It's pitch dark. It falls right onto the table. It busted the lantern. It caught the cabin on fire. The guys are running around. They got a wild animal in the cabin. They're trying to get their guns. The oil is on fire. That's when it busts through the wall and takes out the whole side wall of the cabin and ran out into the Everglades. And they never did know what it was. They said, maybe it was a bear. We don't know. But they tracks were found in the area just a few days later. Did you ever hear the story about the National Park Service getting a skunk ape?
no.
Yeah, they caught a skunk ape. Now, this was a long time ago. This was near Flamingo. They had acquired some properties down there. There was some people living down there, fishermen, and they made this place called Flamingo. Well, in the process, they had to build the road up. They're working on the road, and somehow they capture with ropes this animal. It looks like a big gorilla, and they had some bunkers that they were storing dynamite in. They emptied the dynamite out of it. They put it in there. They called their office and said, "Hey, we got a wild animal out here. We don't know what it is. We need to get y'all out here to see it." By the time they got down out of Homestead, Florida, down there to where the place was, it had busted out of the enclosure it was in and ran off into the Everglades. And they spent days looking. That story's been written up a few times, but for some reason I've had personal property taken from me um, a while back. And all of those stories seem to disappear from the news press. Stories that were written, if I look at it, they just seem to disappear. Kind of strange, you know, how a story can, because people don't know it. But that was true. They actually captured one down in the national park.
Mm.
There's another story of a shooting of one in the Panhandle back around 1700. You hear a lot about that, but you really can't find the document.
Have you heard anything
It's
recently?
frustrating sometimes.
Stories that happened recently within the last few years or so?
Yeah, I got one I probably shouldn't tell you, and I got one you'd probably like to hear. So I'm going to tell you the one you'd probably like to hear.
Okay.
Um, well, the past couple of years, the majority of the sightings here in the Big Cypress, and I keep track of all of them, sightings are reported at both the Oasis Visitor Center and at the new Visitor Center here in Ochopee by visitors. They do report sightings there, but a lot of times they're directed here to my place afterward. The last few years, it started with a young couple on the Loop Road, which is about 10 miles from here. They were down there, they had taken a hiking trail, and when they got back to their car, they saw what they described as being a large chimpanzee in the road walking around. So they went to the national park and they said, "Hey, we just wanted you to know that there's a chimp down there on that road walking around. It walked off in the bushes." And that's when the Park Service told them, "We don't really have any recorded chimps down here. Maybe you should go talk to that guy down there at the research headquarters." And I just so happened to be in. I retired 2 years ago, by the way. I'm still up there. I've been up there today, but I don't officially work. But they came up, I met them, and they told me, they said, "What are you talking about?" Here they are. They saw it. They didn't even know what they saw. And so this was, I said a couple years ago. This is probably 3 years ago. But ever since then, I've been getting steady reports. Last year was a record number of reports down in that area, and all the reports were the same, that it was like the size of an orangutan. So I can only think that there's a young skunk ape down there that's just wandering around in that area. Oh, and one of the python hunters, one of the contractors for the state, found the tracks of the skunk ape down there, and he photographed them. And I got copies of that. And he's a state contractor, so he's no dummy. He knows what he's doing. Time goes so fast. I was contacted by Florida Fish and Wildlife, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, to investigate some tracks that they had found up near Immokalee, Florida, which is a vegetable town, or a farm town. And I went there, and there were these huge tracks in the ditch, definitely skunk ape. We started following them. We were a couple days into it when we got back into the Everglades, and they led us to a huge fenced-in facility. I could hear noises coming out of the forest, like whoo, 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 crazy noises behind this fence. The tracks went. I've been trying to light that cigarette for like 10 minutes. It's not like I'm chain smoking. The tracks went around the fence and then disappeared down into the Everglades. And there, and so, people say, well, what's that? What, they got apes out there in a cage? So I did a story with Smithsonian Magazine, and during the story, I told him about what I had found up there with FWC, and he was kind of sneaky, but we spent a couple of days together. Well, he got in his car, he went up there, and he drove around and drove around, and he found a road that led into the preserve. And before you could go into the preserve, it says, do not go past this point. If you're a federal employee, if you're a government agent, if you're police serving a search warrant, contact this number. It doesn't matter who you are. Do not enter this facility. I mean, it was a big sign, and they meant it. And it was called Primate Products. When they started looking into it, it's called Primate Products. So he does the story for Smithsonian Magazine, and they shut the facility down. If you go there now, it's all gone. But he includes the photographs that he took as evidence that it was there. And he went there and he saw the facility. So it's an interesting story in Smithsonian.
I imagine now with all these people who have cameras on their homes and stuff like that, for security reasons, might start picking up stuff that they didn't realize was on their camera. They might get a good picture sometime.
It's funny how Bigfoot quit looking through the windows when the security cameras came out. You don't see too many home security videos, but back before that, everybody saw Bigfoot standing at the window. But now, no. Yeah, some people say they can see the gland off of the lens. They know about, it goes back to the UFO, the intelligence thing, and all of that. You would, and that's another misconception. Even you kind of led into it. Everybody does. Don't feel bad, but that there's really been no good pictures. But that's not true. There have been tons of good pictures. I see hunters coming in with photographs off their trail cams. They are very reluctant to hand them over. They think that they're worth money, that if they keep them, that they were going to make their pictures famous or whatever. But it is a misconception that there's not a lot of good photographs out there.
Really?
A lot of good photographs out there. There's good evidence. We just don't see it on the back to the reality television shows. We don't see the real evidence on those shows.
It's a shame. That's a shame.
I hate to say that.
So you say that you get a lot of stories that come in because they come and report them to you, you said. So what on the average would you say you get?
The average stories that I hear are in the thousands. I hear Bigfoot stories all day long. But as far as sightings here in the preserve, people coming in saying, we just saw Skunk Ape. I think it's around, to see it. There's a lot of people. We were here last week, saw one. We were here last year, saw one. But sightings that day, emergency, what I call emergency sighting, just for the sake of making it current, about 12.
Interesting. 12. Well, that's a lot. I think so. Yeah. Sheesh. Well, tell the listeners how they could find your research center if they wanted to stop by and have a conversation with you and the people that are there sharing.
Skunk Ape Headquarters in the Everglades. You can Google it, and it'll come up in the business called Skunk Ape Headquarters. And that's how you get to this location. I'm Dave Shealy, and I got a skunkape.info, not skunkape.com. Skunkape.info, I believe, will take you to everything that we have to offer as far as the facility.
Wonderful. Well, we visited the Keys several years back, my husband and I, with our daughters. We loved it. And I didn't know you were around there. So next time I come, I'm going to pop in and say, remember me?
I'll remember you. I'll remember
you
for sure. Yeah, I'm supposed to be down in the Keys now. I do the treasure hunting, which is a real thing. It's huge. Got some Spanish galleons that that we're attempting to start recovering. It's a 30-year project. We've mapped 65 square miles of seafloor. Cost millions
Wow.
of dollars. We have divers out. Boats were out mapping today.
That is so
I'm the
cool.
president. Yeah, I'm the president's assistant to all of that. So, and I like that. I like that. It's a form of hunting. I'm a hunter. I was just born into hunting, and so the treasure hunting falls right into line with that. Although we're
Well, I
hunters,
hope you hit it rich. I hope you hit it rich.
the ships are 500 years old, so you got to. It's hard
Oh,
checking. But we're
so
on the
amazing.
trail.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Dave, for giving me your time today. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun talking to you. I really
Well,
enjoyed it.
it's been nice talking to you. And Brad
Happy
referred you.
birthday on your Skunk Ape endeavor in September.
Yeah, yeah. I think the Skunk Ape Challenge is going to be somebody, getting up the gumption to, come up with $10,000. That's a lot of money. So it'll be interesting to see who those individuals are, and I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
meeting them. Yeah,
I'll bet. Well, thanks again.
yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
And to the listeners, if you like listening to this week's episode and you're into all things paranormal, check out my other show, Eleanor Wagner's Creepin' It Real podcast, out of the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. And if any of you are interested in reading any of my books, you can find the links to them on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com. I write about the history of the town and location, add the paranormal story to the mix, and finish it all off with photos and evidence. Everybody loves a good ghost story, but there's nothing better than a true ghost story. So check it out at authoreleanorwagner.com. And I hope you'll stay a while and listen as Silent Crafters Stranger Part 2 takes us out of the show.